In approximately one generation, our nation here, the United States, and our culture at large has not only moved away from the Bible as the sole source of truth, it has moved at a breakneck speed towards counterfeit sources of authority, with all of them being in competition and in the end, the total opposite of the Bible. Such is the basis for the continuing and developing division in our nation. We once were, ladies and gentlemen, were together on a common view of God, which we talked about just briefly in this last segment with David New, and we're going to pick up on that just now. But throughout this last generation, the insistent denial of history and the facts of our nation regarding the role of the Bible has within it the seeds of total destruction for our nation, since a denial or reality of the facts of history and documental history will come to bring us to our knees. Now, in this segment, we're going to look at just two, and very briefly, important segments of society that were once dominated by the Bible, but now have become openly hostile to the Bible and the God who wrote it. Those two are education and government. And with that, I want to officially welcome now into the program David New. He's a constitutional attorney, a recurring guest on this program, historian and biblical scholar. And David, I'm going to want you to be thinking in this segment, in just a little bit, I want to come back to you about how the Bible influenced directly civil government and the basis of law and the judiciary. But I want to go here first, if I can, with Gary and Dave, to the matter of education in America. And I just want to pull this as an example. A lot of people aren't aware of this, but it was in 1636 that the first university was founded in the United States. It happened to be Harvard University. And it was founded not to train people to be craftsmen or engineers, both of which were notable then and now and very important. But they prioritized it because they said we have to have an institution that teaches young men how to preach the Bible, preach the gospel. So Harvard was a Bible-based university to teach men to preach the Bible. Let me read just a short statement as to the purpose of education at Harvard. First placed on its wall, then still hangs there to this day. I would say, and submit, totally disregarded today, but it's still there. And it's called the Rules and the Precepts of 1646. And it says this. This is what the placard says, the purpose. Quote, "Let every student be plainly instructed and earnestly pressed to consider well that the main end of his life and studies," now get this, "is to know God and Jesus Christ, which is eternal life." And then it writes and cites from the Bible, New Testament, John 17:3. "And therefore to lay Christ in the bottom as the only foundation of all sound knowledge and learning." Gary, let me go to you right now. In your lifetime, just give a little of a quick look back. How have you seen education move from this foundational purpose and goal, and which hinged on the Bible then, to what it is now, being something more hostile, certainly, towards the Bible? Just give us something you recall back in history.
Well, Sam, as you and Dave often say, you know, you've got a preacher here that's been around for generations teaching and preaching the Bible.
I know. That's why we're asking you to comment.
Yeah, I thought so. I kind of figured that was the reason. But, you know, I remember when we had prayer and Bible reading in the public schools, and I went to the public school, and every day the Word of God was read, and we prayed, and the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. But in 1962 and 63, the prayer and Bible reading was taken out of the public school through the efforts of Madalyn Murray O'Hair. From that time on until where we are today, I've seen an increase of an attack against biblical principles and against biblical truth in public education. And, you know, we see that on the elementary and the secondary level, as well as on the college level. You know, you talk about Harvard University or Yale, how they were started to train people for the gospel. They are very, very far from that today. And Sam, one of the things that concerns me, and I think this is tied into it, we won't get into it right now, but I could give you illustrations of Bible colleges and seminaries in our generation that have gotten away from the unadulterated teaching of the Word of God, basically based on Genesis 1 through 11, and consequently, they have even departed from a solid biblical education that is weakening education across the board. We are living in very serious times.
Okay, Gary, you made it very clear. Within your lifetime, you've seen it from Bible reading in the public school to none, and even in our seminaries, and so you've laid that out. I want to go to another one now, because our founders back then started with college level so they could teach pastors, but the next thing was that they integrated and developed a new curriculum. That new curriculum that they used all the way from the 1600s up at the 1890s was called the New England Primer, and it was produced in New England. It was used throughout the colonies. It produced some of the most literate and character-rich people in the world. They started out by doing this. They called it the primers and the ABCs. And they started like this to how to teach children the letters. A, as an example. The verse was, in Adam's fall, we sinned all. B, heaven to mind. The Bible mind, or thy life to mind is what they would say, is different versions there. And then C, Christ crucified for sinners died. The ABCs taught all about who God was, and it went to the Bible. Matter of fact, Noah Webster, who gave us Webster's Dictionary, he said this, that primer, that methodology of teaching our young people to read, quote, it taught millions to read and not one to sin. Interesting. Dave, I want to go to you next right now. Dave Kistler. It brings up a basic question. It's the point to which I believe the American public's been fed a lie, and that is believing that you can have education separate from morality and teaching. Just apply something here, Dave. If, in fact, we were still teaching the ABCs according to the Bible, the New England Primer, how might America look a little bit different today?
Well, Sam, America will look vastly different. And I want to back up what Gary just said. In 1962-63, the Bible and prayer was taken out of public schools. But I attended a rural North Carolina school in 1967 as an elementary school student, and we still had Bible reading and prayer in that public school. So we have moved far afield from the foundation of this country. But if this were all reinstituted, or if this had continued unabated, we would have a vastly different country than we have right now.
We would indeed. And I think, with all that we're struggling with all of the attacks in the schools, the divisions and the sexuality, the perversions of this and the drug usage and all that, Webster said it taught millions to read the Bible, that lesson, and not one to sin. Ladies and gentlemen, go to Egypt, as what David said, or go to India where they have something, or go into an Islamic school and find out how the people live. They live based on what they were taught and what they believe. Here it was the Bible. That's what caused Webster to say, taught millions to read and not one to sin. David New, I want to go to you now in these closing minutes. Go now into the realm of government, the judiciary, law, Congress, all that kind of thing. Lay out some examples there of how the Bible was specifically used to infuse the structure, the foundation for what we understand freedom to be and that which we've come to enjoy in these United States.
Well, number one on that list is monotheism. That statement where Jefferson says we hold these truths to be self-evident. He is looking for a source that will make us these statements true 1,000 years ago, and they will be true 1,000 years from now. They are eternal truths that never change. Now, for the secularists, they believe that what is true for you may not be true for me. What is true for me may not be true for you. But Jefferson would have none of that. He wants an eternal truth, and that requires God. The evolutionist has a problem with this statement as well. When did man cease to become a descendant of an ape or have a common ancestry in ape? Well, Jefferson would have none of that either. He believes God is the creator, and that's why when he says all men are created, he's looking for a truth that is universal, absolute, and doesn't change. And the only way you can have that kind of truth, ladies and gentlemen, is a deity, a God who does not change.
Well, David New, you cited some things from Jefferson, and you were talking about things, the principles that were built right into the Declaration of Independence, which really lays the foundation down. But talk to me a little bit more as well. You've been to D.C. What used to hang? What hangs behind the desk of nearly every court in the country? Ten Commandments?
There is the motto. Pardon?
The Ten Commandments?
No. What hangs behind every court in the United States and many courts is the motto, "In God We Trust." But the other thing to remember also is that when the Constitution was written, the foundation of the Constitution is the Declaration of Independence, and monotheism is the principle behind the Constitution, because there's a phrase on the Supreme Court that says equal justice under law. The concept of equality is a very modern concept. It began with Moses. Before Moses, people were not equal. Many gods favored one group of people over another group. Moses said, that's nonsense. There's only one God, and everybody's equally human in his eyes. The concept of equal justice under the law is a biblical concept.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing just a very, very quick focus on the Bible in our nation, how it underpinned the very foundations of our educational system, from our original colleges, Harvard and Yale, to our instructional system of teaching our young people how to read by teaching them the Bible so that they know how to read, but they would also know how to live and not to sin, as Noah Webster said. But it's all throughout government as well. The entire concept of justice and the separation of powers all comes right out of the Bible.